Welcome to the Aiken Center, which houses the Rubenstein School of Environment and Natural Resources at the University of Vermont. In the last year and a half or 2 years, we've been able to renovate the building to an extremely efficient green building, and we hope to be able to achieve the level of LEED Platinum. One of the major features of the building is an extremely tight and efficient building envelope. And this provides a great deal of insulation, several layers of insulation. We pulled off the old brick, added insulation. We've gone with triple glazed windows that are very well sealed so that we end up with an extremely tight building that allows us to dramatically save on energy costs to both heat and cool the building. So one of the ways that we're able to add to the efficiency of the building is by having a thermostat in every single office space and all the other spaces, so that we're able to control heating and cooling specific to individual use, or if people aren't around, they can change the thermostat to reduce the energy needs in that particular room, and therefore that adds to reduced energy use in the building. So an additional feature that allows us to be more efficient in this building is shown here by this light system, where the computer that controls the building has sensors outside so that it knows the outside humidity and temperature, and it knows the desired temperature and humidity in the building. And when it helps to open the windows and allow outside air in, as is indicated here by the green light, then students, faculty, and staff will notice the green light and open the windows, and therefore reduce the energy needs because we're taking advantage of outside environmental conditions. So another energy efficient component that's often used nowadays in very green buildings is an energy recovery wheel. And what this wheel does is, before exhaust air leaves the building, it passes over a very large turning wheel that captures the energy both in the heat and the humidity, and it stays on that wheel. And then the wheel turns, and this outside supply air flows through that wheel and recovers some of that energy, so that we have to spend less resources to either heat that energy up to the desired temperature or cool it to the desired temperature. The actual green roof that we're putting on the Aiken Center is that we're making a research and demonstration project out of it. And we actually have 8 separately monitored green roof watersheds. Green roofs is their ability to modify temperature. So by adding a green roof, it provides more insulation basically, which then reduce the heating and cooling costs of the building that the green roof is on. About the watersheds up on the roof of the Green Aiken Center. One of the features of them is that we're going to monitor water quality and water quantity coming off of each of the treated watersheds. And we're going to do that, as you can see here, each one of these pipes represents a separately drained watershed. And this is our prototype for a tipping bucket system that we're going to use to measure the amount of water coming out for a given period of time. So each time it fills up with water, it tips, and that's counted by a computer, a signal sent to the computer, which records the time and the tip. We multiply by the amount of water per tip, and we're able to measure water quantity.
So we're standing in the almost finished eco machine in the new Aiken Center, and this system will be a water recycling plant and will help us reduce our consumption of water by 2/3, we project. Now is an assembled ecosystem that's engineered and directed toward a human use. In our case, this is sewage treatment. Okay, so we have septic water coming out of the septic tanks, and this stuff is really stinky. It's anaerobic, and it smells exactly like everyone expects wastewater to smell like. So the first place it goes when it comes into this room is these huge closed aerobic tanks. They're 800 gallons, and they're sealed at the top. any place that we connect to the tank has an airtight bulkhead fitting, and so what we're doing is we're injecting air and we're driving off all those gross gases. The chief ones that we're worried about are methane and hydrogen sulfide, that rotten egg smell you get at low tide in tidal marshes and stuff like that. So we're injecting air, the bubbles rise up through the water column, they drive off those odor-causing gases, and at the same time we're making the water aerobic, or with oxygen. And water that has oxygen in it doesn't make these gases. So if we can drive the gases off, we can get the water to be aerobic, and then we keep it aerobic. And that's why we're injecting air into all these tanks, and that's why the biggest expense in waste treatment is electricity to pump air. So the gross gases get vented up to these big tanks over our heads, and these are full of limestone chips and compost and wood chips, hardwood wood chips. And this actually provides an environment where there are microbes that, believe it or not, eat these disgusting gases as their energy source. They're scavenging for oxygen, and they actually take it off of these compounds. And what we have is odorless, clean air coming off the top. From here, water flows down, and each train has 3 of these open aquatic eco-machine cells, and these are what most people think of when they think of an eco-machine. It's a translucent tank that lets about 90% of the light penetrate, and while it isn't here right now, these plant racks will be full of plants. Each of these tanks, they look exactly the same. The waste coming into this will be stronger than in each successive tank, and so the ecological community that self-designs itself around that environment, the tank and the waste in it, will be a little bit different. From there, the final step of treatment in the room are these constructed wetlands. And I should just note that every tank in here is actually 2 feet deeper than it appears. And you can see that if you look down the side of the open aerobic tanks. So, water from those open aerobic tanks comes up through these pipes and into the head box here at the top, these cool little flower pots. Now they actually inject the water all the way at the bottom, and this is what we're using in our system instead of a clarifier. There's an open space at the bottom of this tank that's full of gravel, and the water comes in there, slows down, and all the stuff settles out. All that sludge, all those microbes, algae, plankton, little bugs, they settle out in there, and we can pull our sludge wasting valve here, and I should say it's more of a sludge recycling valve, and you can see the water screaming out of this tank. It takes about 40 minutes to fill this and about 30 seconds to drain it. So this is how we back flush the wetland, and also how we get microorganisms back to the beginning of the treatment process without having to go and add them to the septic tank. So the water comes in at the bottom, it flows up through the gravel, and the plant roots will be all down through this, and this really just kind of hyper filters it to tertiary standards, advanced treatment standards, and then it flows down into a wetland sump, and we have various ways of recycling water at this point. And part of our experiments are going to be playing with different recycle rates to different parts of the system, and seeing what our trade-offs are in terms of treatment and energy consumption. At this point, all of the 3 trains come back together in the collection sump here. And at this point, we can either open the valves at the bottom here. So there's one for each train, and there's a valve at the bottom. If we open that valve, then that train just drains to the floor drain and goes right back to sewer. If we have that valve closed, then it comes into our collection sump, and this is the water that ends up being reused in our toilets. It goes to the basement, and we ultra filter it down to 1 micron, and then we blast it with UV light so powerful that it just tears apart the DNA of anything living there and renders it sterile. And that's pretty much the whole system. The two main advantages that eco machines have over regular conventional technology is we need less air. We have to pump less air into our tanks because plants. The other thing is that we produce less sludge.
Welcome to the solar array for the Aiken Center at the University of Vermont. We have a total of 17 solar trackers in this array. And you can see each one has an anemometer on the top. They're all computer controlled. They track the sun over time, which makes them about 40% more efficient than a fixed solar system. Each one of these arrays produces about as much energy as necessary in a small, efficient house, producing about between 17 and 20% of the energy for the Aiken Center out of this alternative energy source.